Okay, hello folks. I'm Rachel with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. I hope wherever you're joining us from, we have folks from all across the country, from Missouri to California and Nebraska and Alabama and New York joining us. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us tonight. We are so thrilled to have Missouri Senate candidate Lucas Kunce with us tonight. We think he is truly something special and has a very special message that he's sharing with folks. And we think that you'll hopefully think that too. So we will dig in soon. If you have a question at any point, we already have a ton of pre-submitted questions. Bear with me as we go through them. I will do my best. Lucas is eager to hear from all of you, and we will get through as many as we possibly can, while being respectful of Lucas's time and everyone else's time here on the call. So just chat your message in the box whenever you'd like to. And then, I'll say we've really purposely designed these events to not charge a ticket fee up front, because we think it's really important that you hear from the candidate first and get a sense of Lucas. And then if you're feeling inspired, which we are almost positive you will be, then you can decide to chip in and help support his campaign. So we will dive in 1 second, but something that we've been doing just to feel a little bit more of a sense of togetherness is let's all unmute ourselves and say hi to each other and hi to Lucas. So can everyone please unmute themselves quickly and let's say hello.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Lucas.
Good
to see you guys.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Lucas.
Hello.
Hello.
Lucas, I grew up in Jefferson City.
That was
Barely
awesome.
here in Jefferson City. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. We need you.
Thank you. Yes. Cheers to
I
that.
live in Ohio right now, but I'm from Jeff City.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I grew up on
Thank you.
Dunklin Street.
I grew up on Atchison Street. And
I know Atchison. I used to get the bus on Atchison from Dunklin. I'd walk down.
Right.
Yeah.
my brother
Atchison?
my brother still lives there. He's out on Green Tree Road.
Nice.
Thank
Nice.
you, Roberta, for joining us. Okay, so let's go ahead and dig in. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our co-founder, Stephanie Taylor. Stephanie.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our call tonight. Thank you to all the folks that are in the Zoom room. Thank you to the folks that are watching on Facebook. I am so excited tonight to introduce Lucas Kunce, who's running for the So thank you for joining our call tonight. I am so excited to introduce Lucas Kunce, who's running for an open US Senate seat in Missouri. This is a critical seat for Democrats to win, and I'm convinced Lucas is the candidate who can do it. Lucas has lived the struggles of many working families in this country. He grew up in Jefferson City, Missouri. We heard earlier a shout out to Jefferson City. His parents were bankrupted by medical bills. Like so many of the folks in this country have had that same experience. And after college and law school, he joined the Marines. And he was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, working on arms control issues. He defended service members from predatory finance. And as he says, every time he came home from deployment, he saw the deterioration in his hometown, even as we spent fortunes and lives trying to build up other countries. So he became a passionate anti-monopoly and anti-corruption advocate, working for the American Economic Liberties Project to take on big pharma, big tech, big ag, and defense contractors. And the way he describes it is as a project to save democracy itself, which I think is such an articulate and smart way to put it. So I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. And let me now give a very warm welcome to Lucas Kunce.
Thanks, Stephanie. It's great to hear your voice again. I've enjoyed every time we've gotten to talk, and I'm excited to meet everybody here. I was like, oh, I better go to gallery mode, and now it's so many pages that I can't even do that. So I'm just going to have to look at myself, I guess, in this camera. But
Lucas, we have 81 folks on the line here with us.
that's great. I'm really excited. I'd like to just Stephanie kind of gave my background. I'll just give you guys a little flavor of that, and then a quick update on where the race is at, and then we'll just do questions. And so, yeah, I mean, I grew up in a working class family in Jeff City, Missouri. You know, great neighborhood though. Kids running in and out of everybody's houses. Everybody taking care of each other. You know, I can give you an example of that. Several examples. Like we had a local grocery store, Lee's Market. Maybe Roberta remembers it, and a Gerb's nearby. And so. You know, when we were paycheck to paycheck, because like my parents were my mom was 19 when they got married. They were Catholic. They had 4 kids, you know, bang, 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 bang. It's tough to make it under those circumstances right now. And so, and then, and, you know, they were paycheck to paycheck. And the guy down at the grocery store, the manager, would always let my mom float a check, you know, write it a few days early and not cash it till the end of the month so that we could make it. When my little sister was born and had that heart surgery, like Stephanie said, our family went bankrupt. But you know what? Like when my sister was having heart surgery in St. Louis, no matter what, us other 3 kids always had a place to stay in that neighborhood. Everybody took care of us. You know, I remember when my mom had no money left, they'd pass the plate down at church. Or as a lot of people know, like, you know, I remember sitting in our living room and just seeing like more lasagna and casserole roll through our front door than we could ever eat. And so like, for me, I just wanted to do something like well with myself. Like I wanted to do well out of that. Everybody taking care of me. It's something that I wanted to honor. I studied really hard. I got into Yale University out of Dunklin Street in Jeff City, Missouri. And I honestly, I felt powerless. I didn't know how I was going to go. And I got a Pell Grant from the federal government. And I got scholarships from people around town who just wanted to help and see someone from their hometown go to Yale. And so I've spent my life trying to pay that back. You know, after that, I went back to Mizzou for law school, and then I just wanted to figure out what I was going to do. And so I got a little bit conned here. This guy I grew up with, he actually helped run the kitchen at our parish. He gave us our first dishwasher out of the parish when he knew we didn't have one. And he was a Marine officer in Vietnam, and he was like, "Oh, I got an idea for you, Lucas." And so he took me down to the Marine Corps League, all these old timers singing their songs and stuff, and, you know, giving me the guilt trip. Like, if it's not you, it's somebody else. Iraq was pretty ugly at the time. And I just thought, you know what? Yeah, this is how I'm going to serve my country. And so I joined the Marine Corps. I did 13 years. I went to Iraq once, you know, running convoys, dodging IEDs, trying to train a bunch of Iraqi police who were eventually beheaded by ISIS because we didn't really build anything lasting there, and it collapsed. And then I went to Afghanistan twice. I learned Pashto, the language of Southern Afghanistan. I was on Special Operations Task Forces, and I watched us spend $6.4 trillion overseas. And, you know, while our politicians here squabble over every single nickel that they're going to spend back home. And I kept going back to my old neighborhood between these deployments. And I saw the first house I lived in bulldozed down. It's now an empty lot. The only new things we've got are habitat houses. The grocery stores where they let my mom float a check are now gone. You know, the house I joined the Marine Corps out of is a drug den, basically. I went in. We were actually on the cover of Political Magazine a little while ago as a template for how Democrats can win in the Midwest again. The reporter went to that house with me, and she didn't have the heart to write about it because it's a mess. Like, there's feces all over the floor, mattresses on the ground, and just the place is falling apart. And so, you know, I got frustrated by this. I was working at the Pentagon. I was leading arms control negotiations with NATO and Russia, which is popping right now. I'm glad I'm not there now. They're working like 18-hour days. And you know, I started to volunteer at nonprofits, like Stephanie said, that did anti-monopoly work, because these are the people who are destroying our small towns. They're destroying our communities. They're shipping our jobs overseas. They're buying off our politicians, who then strip communities like the one that I grew up in for parts. And so I started doing anti-monopoly work. I helped write an executive order that was actually signed by the president this summer on competition policy. So we go after big ag, pharmaceutical cartels, defense contractors, and big tech. Helped run some of the hearings behind the scenes in Congress on big tech in the House Antitrust Subcommittee. You know, what I want to do is break up these big companies, get an even playing field, and sort of spread the wealth in America again. And so that's kind of that's my personal background. And then as far as the race goes, like, I want to run the race, owing nobody but the people that I grew up with, right? And so I've taken no corporate PAC money. We don't take money from pharmaceutical executives. We don't take it from fossil fuel executives. We have a very long list of people who have corrupted our country and gutted my state who I don't want to take money from. And so, when I started the race, I had no political background. I didn't have any connections. I met with some consultants. They said, you can never run a race like that. It's impossible. These are Democrat consultants, right? They're like, oh no, just go corporate. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it right. And I said, fine, you will just never do anything and it doesn't matter to us. And, since then we've raised $2.5 million. We've outraised every single Republican in the race. We've taken the poll numbers down from being behind 17% to we just had a poll come out this week that showed I'm 3.8% behind the leading Republican. And we're doing it because we have a message of fundamentally changing who has power in the country. We are taking money only from the right people. We are leading the country in grassroots donations under $200. I mean, we are up there with, Val Demings, John Fetterman, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. We're right there. We're doing it in Missouri. It's incredible. We've gotten a bunch of profiles about how this is how Democrats have a chance to take back the Midwest and take it from liars like, Josh Hawley, Donald Trump, Eric Greitens, these people who are preying upon the lack of trust that Missourians have and sort of the disappointment that they've had with Democrats and Republicans over and over and over again, right? And so that's the lane that we're taking. Again, the race is going very well. I'm excited to talk to you all. I will now go to Q&A because I probably talked longer than I was supposed to. I don't know how much you guys know me, so I thought that'd be a good way to sort of get to know you.
That was perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Lucas.
Rachel.
So we have a ton of questions. So we are going to kick it off, and right here from University City in Missouri, we have Judith Connor. Miss Judith.
Hey, Judith.
Can you please go ahead and unmute yourself, Judith, and ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm now in Webster Groves, formerly U City.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine. I just didn't.
My grandmother was born in Webster Groves.
That's fine. That's fine. Just needed to correct the record. Well, my question before I heard you at all, Lucas, was since this is a red state, except for the 3 blue spots of St. Louis, Kansas City, and Columbia, how are you going to pull this off? Now, I have to say, this is the first I've heard of you. You apparently have raised a lot of money. I don't know anything. How would I work to get your name out there? Because you really sound good. And
well,
I'm
thanks.
all for it.
So my grandma and grandpa were from Webster Groves and Kirkwood, and they had a little bit of a big battle there, but it turned out well because I'm here. So yeah, I mean, so Missouri is a Republican state, but when I go around the state, I don't actually think it's that Republican or Democrat. I would call it anarchist, honestly, or populist, which is the word that we use for ourselves. And the reason I say that is that no matter where I go, whether it's urban St. Louis, a farm out by Palmyra, anywhere else, like the thing that I hear over and over and over again is no matter what I do, no matter who I vote for, I have no power and these people just screw me over and over and over again. And like, I'll give you a recent rural example I got. I was out at the farm in Palmyra. I was meeting with farmers from all over northern Missouri. And they start talking about how this is a company called Smithfield, right? One of the biggest ag producers in our country. And they start talking about Smithfield. And you know what? They're like, you know what? We lost 90% of Missouri hog farmers in just one generation. Missouri had the most hog farmers of any state. We lost them all in one generation because a monopolist came in, they undercut us on prices, they had vertically integrated the supply chain, they cut us out, and they destroyed our local farming. And then they put all these concentrated animal feed operations in our state, polluted our water, destroyed our towns, everything else. And then they're like, and then you know what happened? When they wanted to cash out on that, they decided to sell themselves to a Chinese conglomerate. And Missouri had a law in the books at the time that said no foreign companies can own agricultural land in Missouri. And so what Smithfield did is they went to every single Democrat and Republican in the Missouri State House. They bought them off with campaign donations. They got them to change that law. And when that law first went to the Missouri Senate, only one person voted against it. And so what you see is all these people, and now Smithfield's owned by China. You know, they have a choke point in our agricultural system where farmers aren't getting any more money than they used to. The price of meat is like doubled, some places tripled in the supermarket. It's because they're abusing the Packers and Stockyards Act, and they're essentially using their monopoly power to collect monopoly rents. But what you see is just everyone out there says, you know, it doesn't matter who I vote for. I have no power. I will never have any power. Everybody's bought off. And just to give you an urban example too, I was in South St. Louis the other day at a place called Southside Wellness Center run by a woman named Ollie. Ollie's she's like a 150-year-old Black woman. I don't know how she's still doing it. She's actually like 90. She's been running this place for 60 years. And it's in a very poor neighborhood, all Black neighborhood, a Black run business. And she's like, you know what? I've been running this place for a very long time. And it used to be, we would get the Medicare and Medicaid money. We would spend it locally. We would buy the food locally. We had a chef on staff. They would make local cuisine that everybody liked and people were happy. And then she said, this big company came in. They lobbied our government to change the contracting rules. And they made it so that now everything we buy has to come from the exact same company. It's in like Florida. It all comes frozen or pre-packaged. It has high sodium. Nobody likes it. The money leaves our community. And, you know, people have higher blood pressure because of the sodium content. She's like, it's just, I feel so frustrated and like I have no power, and it's because the government is just completely bought off. And so that's two examples, but I just see it over and over and over again. And so we're not running a left-right campaign. We're running a top-bottom campaign. We're running a populist campaign about fundamentally changing who has power in the country. That's it. That's our main thing, is changing who has power. We're not taking money from the right people. We want to ban members of Congress from owning stocks. A blind trust isn't good enough. They shouldn't own any at all. Neither should their family members. We led on this issue. We started in September before, you know, Business Insider even started talking about it, and before any members of Congress were going in on it. And so what we have seen is resonance with that. I mean, you're from Missouri. You know that people in Missouri have been trying to take back power, right? I mean, we fought back the anti-union right to work, 68% to 32%. We passed a minimum wage that's $5 over the federal level. That's pretty incredible that we did that right here in Missouri on ballot measure. We passed medical marijuana and we passed Medicaid expansion. And so what I see in Missouri is a very strong populist streak, but it's a huge lack of trust in government and in politicians. And right now, what you've seen in politicians nationwide is you see Democrats saying, trust the institutions, trust the government. That has not worked for people here. And so they haven't gone for that. They're going for the people who say, you know, don't trust it. And I'm not saying trust it or don't trust it. I'm saying change it, make sure that it's not bought off anymore so that we can represent people again. And so that's where we're going. And again, I think the money raised, all grassroots, and the poll numbers show that what we're doing is working. I mean, it's not, you don't even have to take my word for it. Like we have, you know, there's real statistics behind it now, which I'm really happy about.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yes, no, we have so many questions rolling in.
Okay,
So
I'll go faster.
No, we love you. You're great. Judith, thank you so much for the question, Judith. And we will make sure we will have the donate link in the chat box, Judith. And if you'd like to volunteer, we'll also throw that in there as well. If you'd like to share that with your friends. Judith, thank you so much for.
Oh, Rachel, can I jump in again, even though it's naughty?
Yes,
okay,
no, go for it.
So right now what we're raising money for is to hire an organizing director, because we actually have a bank of thousands of volunteers and we need to be able to organize them. So we're trying to hire that this month, and there is a volunteer slot on the website. So if you go there, it's like donate volunteer. If you sign up to volunteer, hopefully people in this room will help us fund that organizing director. We'll have that, and then we'll be able to start doing that. And we're doing it early. This is early for a Senate race traditionally, but we have to do it early in order to win in Missouri. So that's where we're going. So okay.
No, perfect. Yeah, we'll drop that in the chat box. And then, you know, we have a bunch of questions rolling in. So very quickly, we're going to go into our next question. But quickly, I wanted to share, you know, as people send in questions, you know, some people ask during the event, some send in questions before the event, and we try to, you know, capture a bit of both. But sometimes people just send me a comment. So I wanted to read a few of the comments about Lucas. And so he said, one person said, I met him in DC when he was there. Very impressive. Even my wife liked him. Another person said, I read your emails and donate monthly. Thank you. Someone else said, do you have a volunteer group set up? I would love to text for you. We will drop that in the chat box. And then someone else just said, just win. So yes. So those are a few of the comments.
Okay, I will take that directive and I will run with it.
Okay, so next question, we are heading to Howard Park, joining us from St. Louis, Missouri. Howard, please, what's your question for Lucas?
Well, it's clear you're running on economic issues. Do you think you can actually pull Trump voters to our side enough to win? And, which is probably, a few percent, but a significant one. Can we do that or not?
Hey, Howard, how's life in St. Louis?
Rainy and icy.
Oh, beautiful. So, yes, I mean, here's the thing, like this is incredibly important for our campaign. And that's, what I hear from people nationally all the time, or people in places like St. Louis or Kansas City. I live in Independence right outside Kansas City is, I don't understand why all these people keep voting against their self-interest, right? I hear that over and over again. It's understandable. It's an understandable frustration. But like, the reason for that is, again, it's because people don't trust the institutions anymore. I can give you a couple examples, and this is where, Democrats and Republicans failed. But, in, let's say 2010, for example, my dad, who worked the same job forever so his little girl could have health insurance, right? Because that was the only way if he moved back then, pre-existing conditions were a thing and he would have never been able to insure her. So welcome to being trapped by American healthcare. But so he does that job for until he can retire. And then when he retires, he tries to find another job in Jeff City. He can't find one. This is 2010, when people nationwide are saying, we're saving the economy, we've bailed out the banks, everything's great, we're fixing things, the economy's recovered. He can't find a job anywhere in Missouri. And he gets a headhunter who then sends him, of course, to the coasts, right? Stockton, California, and then Baltimore, Maryland. He gets his job in Baltimore, and then he wants to sell the house because he can't afford to have two places. And so he puts the house on the market when everybody nationwide is saying, oh, this bailout we did for the banks has saved the housing market. The housing market's recovered. Prices are popping in whatever, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., everywhere they care about. Well, my dad's house sat on the market for 2 years on Dunklin Street in Jeff City, Missouri. He had to put the price down every single month until he finally sold it for $43,000, and he owed 70-something on it. And so, this man has done everything the institutions told him his entire life. Catholic Church told him to have kids. He had 4 kids, bang, 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 right? He worked the same job. He bought a house. He tried to pay it down. And you know what? He came out just in debt and with a disabled daughter who he still takes care of to today, right? And so you get story after story of that in Missouri where people are like, I don't understand why we built out these banks and then they foreclosed on me. I saw it when I was a Marine. I was fighting the big banks when I was a Marine because Marines were getting foreclosed on illegally under the Service Member Civil Relief Act while they were deployed by these very same banks we bailed out. And then, let's talk about being a Marine. Afghanistan's another example, right? For how many years did our institutions, the smart people in DC or wherever else tell us, give us your sons and daughters, give us your literally trillions of dollars. We're building something real and lasting here in Afghanistan. It's worth it. I swear to God, we're doing that. And we saw that collapse in 2 weeks, right? And if you'd been there like I was, you'd have known that was going to happen. It's just nobody listened to us. And so what you have, and those are just 2 examples, but what you have is situation after situation after situation where the institutions have failed people in Missouri and in the Midwest. And you have Democrats saying, trust the institutions. And so what has happened there is people like Josh Hawley, people like Donald Trump have come in and they have said, the system is rigged, the system is broken, it's not working for you. And that's the first time anybody has acknowledged that. So they latch onto it. Of course, they're writing a truckload of lies through the world, right? I mean, Donald Trump put Gary Cohn, president and CEO of Goldman Sachs, in charge of our economy. Come on. But he was able to tap into that in a populist way that no one had really felt before. And so what our job to do, what my job is to do, this is why we're on the cover of Politico, it's why we're getting so much attention, is to take that narrative back, right? To show that people who are going to actually change the economy, actually do things for you, exist, and take it away from liars like Josh Hawley, take it away from liars like Eric Greitens, who are taking money from all the wrong people, saying things and actually dividing people on race, religion, whatever else it is, so that they can have power. Because true populism is not dividing people based on race, economic status, well, maybe economic status, but not on race, not on religion, not on where you grew up, right? It's about bringing those people together so that normal, everyday people have power again in a system that's not working for them. And so that's how we're going to get voters. We do have a persuasion message. This is not just a get out the vote message. This is a messaging and a persuasion message. And like I said, it's been effective. We are getting a lot of traction with it.
Thank you so much, Howard. Lucas, thank you. Okay, we're going to keep it rolling. Up next, we have Allison Gallant. Allison is joining us from Los Angeles. Miss Allison, could you please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Lucas your question?
I'm actually in Bellingham, Washington.
Oh, I was just a little bit wrong then. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I moved here from Los Angeles, so you're mostly right. But you can tell from the gray, bleak, gloomy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see sunshine there, so.
Yeah, there's no palm trees behind me. Anyway, thank you so much, Lucas, for being here, and thank you for your service. And I feel like everything. What's that?
I said thanks for the paycheck all those years.
Yeah, well.
Unless you were skimping on your taxes, but we don't have to pull that out here.
Right. The question I had, I think you may have already addressed in a lot of your remarks, but my question was, what insights have you gained as a progressive candidate who's been very successful in a red state, and what insights can you share with other candidates nationally that are also facing an uphill battle in red states?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, people aren't stupid. People know what the problem is. When you go around, I'm telling you, the farmers know more about monopolies than anybody you have ever met. They understand who's screwing them. They understand what happened to their neighbors. They understand that the reason the buildings in their town are crumbling, literally crumbling into the town hall, is because local farmers used to buy feed locally, equipment locally, keep money in the economy locally. And now you have these massive corporations who get everything from one place, frequently overseas, never locally, and it just has absolutely destroyed their economy. They understand what's happening to the land. They understand what's happening with climate change. If you go to Southeast Missouri, you'll find that farmers are buying land further north than you can grow cotton right now, because they have seen cotton growing land creep northward more and more and more. So actually in Southern Illinois, they're buying land for cotton now, which is crazy. They could have never grown cotton there before. And so people out there understand issues. They really do. We should never, ever talk down to anyone. They understand why they're getting screwed. And it's not just intuition, it's also intellectual, right? And the problem though that we have is that there is just a fundamental lack of trust and a feeling that no matter what I do, I'm never going to have any power. And so what I would say is that a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because to him, and this is a military analogy, but to him, it was like throwing a grenade in the room, right? It's not working for us anymore. This is just throw the grenade in the room, blow that whole thing up. We don't care anymore because they've screwed us for so long. And so I would say those are kind of the things that I've learned. People will understand when you talk to them. In fact, they might understand better than you do what, for example, corporate power looks like and what the damage corporate power causes is. And so we can meet people where they're at. We just have to talk about it and really hit issues that you can talk about, whether you're in a left crowd or a right crowd, right? Like everything I'm saying here, I would say this to anybody. These are the same issues that I talk about. If this gets posted on the internet, whatever. These are the issues. I don't have to change what I say in a primary versus what I say in a general election, because it's all the same thing. And whether you're black, white, brown, whatever, you're mostly getting screwed by the exact same cadre of people. And that's why we're stronger together. So I would just, those are kind of some things that I've seen. Others I've sort of addressed already, but yeah.
Allison, thank you so much for the question. I love that question. Lucas, thank you for the thoughtful response. All right, we are going to keep it rolling. Up next, we are going to go to our friend Neela Patel. Neela, can you share where you're joining us from, since I've been wrong where everyone is joining us from? So ignore me where people live. Neela, please unmute yourself. Tell us where you're joining us from, and ask Lucas your question, please.
Yeah, my name's Neela Patel, and I'm calling from the San Francisco Bay Area. Really a pleasure to get to know you, Lucas. My question is about climate change. I am a scientist by training, and saying that this is code red for humanity is no joke. And I would really like to hear, what kinds of legislation you would support in order for us to address it in a meaningful way in the next 5 years.
So this is a project that I really care a lot about, and it's for several reasons. One is Missouri has been gutted on the manufacturing industrial level. We don't really mine or drill any hydrocarbons, so we have a lot of opportunity here where, like the Petroleum Association doesn't really have any power. And so what I have been trying to do, and this is something that I've been working on since before I was running for office. So at the nonprofit I worked at, the American Economic Liberties Project, I wrote a piece in the American Prospect about the national security case for decarbonization. And you're actually seeing it play out right now. I wrote about this over a year ago, about how Russia has a significant amount of power that they shouldn't have because of the gas pipelines and gas that they feed to Western Europe, and about how actually Western Europe is funding Russia's military modernization, Russia's misadventures overseas, Russia's, nuclear programs, hypersonic missiles, whatever else. Like that money comes from Western Europe through fossil fuel purchases. And so I saw this when I was negotiating arms control agreements with Russia. I would go to NATO, I would try to get our allies on board, and I'm telling you, a lot of them would never get on board with what they're trying to do because they were hooked to that Russian gas, and they were getting more and more hooked on it, right? They use more now than they did 10 years ago. They've used more now than they did when Ukraine was invaded in 2014. They've gone the wrong direction on it. And so what I posit in that article and in a lot of things that I'm talking about is building the next generation of energy right here in Missouri or across the Midwest, where we have been absolutely gutted and we need true investment in good jobs. Like, this is a national security case, and it's going to save us money in the long term. And I don't mean just save us on fossil fuels. I don't even mean save us on, climate refugees, all this other stuff, but just on national security. If the amount of money we spent fighting for oil or not defending against Russia was spent here getting out ahead of that, we would be completely free of all these problems, and we would be saving the planet at the same time, and we would be creating good jobs right here in Missouri. And so, there are a lot of things that factor into that, like every degree warmer a place is, the likelihood of a conflict increases by a certain percentage. So, if global warming continues at the trend it's going on right now, like a lot of these nation states are going to have a 60% higher likelihood of civil war over the next 30 years. It's something like that, which if America keeps playing world police is going to be a huge problem for us. It's going to create a lot of immigration that a lot of people aren't very fond of in places like Missouri. And so this really hits all of the issues that a lot of people care about if we take it from another direction that's not, and this is not an offense to anyone here, but that's not as granola, because people have been trained to have a little bit of an aversion to things like that. And like we are saying, and like Ukraine situation is a great example right now, that, this is an issue that actually impacts a lot of other things. It impacts everything. And really, it's better for Missouri, and we can triumph in America and on the world stage if we take the right approach to this and sort of, frame it that way, which meets a lot of people where they're at. And especially them investing here. Again, I watched us spend trillions of dollars in Iraq. We all knew we were there for oil. Donald Rumsfeld had said we were there for oil. So did Alan Greenspan. So did the CENTCOM commander. Everybody said it. We would joke about it. Well, why are we here again? Oh yeah, oil, right? And we didn't even get the oil. And if we'd spent that amount of money that we spent in Iraq, we would have a fully clean electric grid right now. And so, that's kind of the approach that we're taking. And I think that it's a helpful one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neela, for the very important question. Thank you, Lucas.
Okay. And we were endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters and, you know, sort of that crowd. So we're good on that stuff.
Awesome. Okay, up next, we are going to go to our friend Barbara German, I believe joining us from Missouri, but I could be wrong. So Barbara, please let us know where you're joining us from and please ask your question.
Hi, it's Barbara Garman, but I appreciate I appreciate that twist. That's French or something. It sounds.
I was like, yeah, there's a Garmon in Missouri. Whoa.
Yes,
I gave it a little twig. Sorry about that.
I love it. I appreciate that. And I am from Sedalia, Missouri.
All right.
Yeah,
I've been to Sedalia. I used to play tennis in Sedalia.
Yeah, quite red. I'm sorry. So I'd love for you to flip that for us.
Let's do it.
All right. My question is, I'd love to have your views and your commitments regarding the abortion issue and women's rights over their own bodies.
Yeah, so I support access to abortion in the spectrum of reproductive rights. We've got it on our website. We don't shy away from it. It's I think it's an important issue, and yeah, I'm with you on that.
Perfect. Awesome. I appreciate that.
Short and sweet.
Yeah,
yes.
Boy, if they were all that easy.
Thank you, Barbara, for joining us, and thank you for the question.
Thank
you. Up next, I want to throw someone in here from Facebook because we have some folks from Facebook joining us as well. So I want to try and hit some of their questions. So Lucas, Shari asks, how would you regulate social media companies that act like monopolies?
Oh, they don't just act like monopolies. These are some of the worst monopolists in our country. So yeah, I mean, you know, again, our American Economic Liberties Project, if you Google it, this is like our crusade. We led the crusade. We led the Break Up Facebook campaign. We led House antitrust subcommittee hearings in Congress. We led getting Lena Khan appointed as chair of the FTC. And this is a huge issue for us. And so for me in particular, I think we need to break them up. We need to break them into their constituent parts. We could add regulation to that. Maybe around targeted advertising. That would be a good way to sort of hook into that. I think we need to repeal Section 230. You know, these guys are behaving like the big tobacco companies of the 21st century, right? They know they're causing harm. We've seen that on recent studies and information just coming out on Instagram alone, where they know that it's causing harm to young women and girls, and they went ahead and did it anyway. And so like they're like big tobacco, except you can't even sue them because they have Section 230 protecting them. And so I think we need to change that. They need to be held accountable in the court of law. Like one of the great equalizers in America against big corporations is that the littlest guy in our entire country can go up against them in court, prove that they did them wrong, get damages, hold them accountable, and make them actually change their business practices. And when we're not able to do that against somebody, they can act with impunity. They can buy off our politicians to make sure the regulation works for them. When they ask to be regulated, they're doing that because they own the regulators and they want that regulation and they want it done in a way that it works for a monopolist. And I swear to God, that's the truth. I've seen it happen in the Pentagon over and over again when I worked there. The big guys want regulation. They want as much regulation as they can get. They want to help shape it because then they become the gatekeeper for all the small businesses. They can keep them out. The more complicated it is, the more difficult it is, the better they're able to consolidate their control. And so those are some of the things against Facebook. You know, I'm really proud of those hearings that happened in Congress. A bunch of attorneys general now have lawsuits against them. I would love to hold as many hearings as I can in the Senate, not just on big tech, but on a lot of big businesses, particularly monopolists who are exercising that type of power and expose sort of the root information that can then be used by states to go after them in lawsuits. Which is incredibly important, again, with the tech companies, because you can't even sue them individually. So that's pretty much where I'm at on that.
Very thorough answer. Thank you, Lucas. Okay, up next, we are going to go to Nick Russo. Mr. Nick Russo, can you please go ahead and unmute yourself? And can you tell folks where you're joining us from and ask Lucas your question, please?
Sure, I'm from New York City, and I'm very interested and agree totally with your comments regarding the need to change the equation from the corporate and overseas domination of the economy to back to local controls. And I want to know, since we agree, the biggest part of the question is what and how do we do that? It's a very complicated thing, and it's going to be very hard to do even as one senator, even though you're 1/100th of a very important body. It's still very difficult to do that. How would we go about it?
So I think there's two things there. One is sort of intangible, and then the other one is what I would actually like do as a senator. And so the intangible is if we win in Missouri on this messaging and we show people that this is what works and that this is what the Midwest needs and is demanding and that this is what people want, we're going to have a lot of copycats. And I think that in 5 or 6 years, we're going to have way more than just one in the Senate. And many of the people who are already in the Senate are going to trend that direction. Because it's going to be very powerful. It's unexpected. It's already, it's already what we've done has gotten an incredible amount of attention. I mean, we've had more profiles written on this race than any other race in the country because of the message, the approach, and the effect we've had. And then tangibly, what I would do is run as many hearings as I can out of the U.S. Senate in whatever committee I'm in, because every committee has monopolists in it. Our entire economy is consolidated right now. And do what I can to expose those, again, bring out information that states in general can use, that private parties can use. I want to rewrite the Sherman Antitrust Act. We don't even need to just do that, though. If we enforced it a little heavier, we would actually really be getting there just on our own. I want to help demand that our judges are not corporate judges. I'm not going to vote for a single corporate judge. And right now, given the breakup of the Senate and how close it's going to be, even if we win, like that vote against corporate judges is going to be huge because corporate judges have gone a long way to taking a law like the Sherman Antitrust Act or another one like the Packers and Stockyards Act that actually do have capabilities and teeth and gutted them through their, Borkian or Milton Friedman analysis of the law and just sort of the white shoe mentality that they bring to things. And so, we were part of a group of nonprofits that really moved to have Joe Biden's first slate of judges be all non-corporate women and minorities, right? And so I think that we really need to continue in that direction. And again, we have a lot of power on that. Another door that I would like to close is the revolving door between, say, big contractors in defense or Wall Street and the SEC, that sort of thing. And so again, when you're 1 out of 100, it's not a lot, but when it's this close on appointments, you can get a lot of leverage. And I would exercise that to the extreme, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I'm not voting for anybody who comes out of the corporate world who has that sort of mentality. So I think we can have a really good effect on the personnel being policy side of the house.
Nick, thank you so much for the question. Lucas, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, up next, we are going to go to Sam Belsky. Sam, can you please go ahead and unmute yourself? Tell us where you're joining from and ask Lucas your question, please.
Hey, I'm joining from DC right now. I go to school down here. Just wanted to ask.
Where you going, Sam?
I'm going to GW.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a senior here now. It's been interesting being here the past couple of years.
Yeah, I bet.
Just wanted to ask, given that you're a younger candidate than most who are running for the Senate, what advice would you have for young people who are looking to get into politics or run for office nowadays?
Well, that's tough. I don't this wasn't exactly in the plan. So what I did was I just kind of followed my heart in my life, right? Like I felt like I wanted to pay everybody back. So I did the Marine Corps. I felt like it wasn't working because, I felt like I was lied to by the institutions. Honestly, like I went into that, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed thinking this is how I'm going to serve my country. And instead, I watched us waste all this money over there, my neighborhood fall apart, people in my unit get killed, and it's just, it's messed up. And so then I just transitioned to working at the nonprofit that fights the corporate monopoly power that's destroying our country. And so, for me, it was just to continue following my heart. And now it's, I truly believe that Missouri is the battleground for how we fundamentally change who has power in our country. And I want to be at the front lines of that fight. And I'm doing everything that I can. And jumping into it, again, like I met with several consultants in the DC establishment who all said, you have to raise money a certain way. You have to sacrifice your principles. You have to do all of these things. And I I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue to follow my heart and do it the right way. And I think that that's a powerful thing for anybody to do. So as long as you do that throughout your life, I think you're doing the right thing. And if that leads you to politics, great. If it leads you to arms control negotiations with Russia, like I did, that's really cool too. I mean, there's so much opportunity to make change. It's not just in politics, but if you're following, you know, the right path, I think it's going to work out no matter what.
Thank you, Lucas. Sam, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Sam. Okay, up next, we have a ton more questions. We have 86 folks with us on the line, so bear with me, folks, but we're going to try and sneak in a few more questions here. Let me go back to Facebook Live to bring in some of the folks joining us there. Lucas, Sarah asks, how many doors do you plan to personally knock on this year in Missouri? How many pairs of shoes are you ready to sacrifice?
Well, so I'm planning on, I don't like going through pairs of shoes. So if I get a pair of like boots or a nice pair of shoes, then I get them resold. So I keep the same shoes. So, but I plan on going through several of those. I'm going to knock thousands of doors. I mean, we're going to be all over. That's one of the reasons that we're focusing on raising money right now. Like the hope is that, so, and I'll give you this, like the more money we raise now, we're able to invest it in things like email lists, in digital acquisition, in digital advertising that gets more people both on our volunteer team and on our donor list. And so we actually run a multiplier on our money right now. And so everything that comes in now, you know, for a while there, our multiplier was like 1.6. We would get 1.6 times what was coming in like every 3 months. And so I don't know what it is right now because I haven't been keeping up with it. I'm not on the finance team. But our goal is to continue that build and continue that investment, hire this organizing director and everything else, so that come next summer, I get to focus entirely on things like doors, meeting people, meeting with voters, going all around the state and things like that. So, so it's going to depend on, you know, how we raise money early, where I can allocate my time, but the trajectory we're on and what we're trying to do is do that nonstop throughout the summer and fall. And I'm really excited about that because I think we're leading towards that. And while I will only use one pair of shoes, I do hope to go through many, many souls.
Thank you.
And I've knocked doors before. It's fun. Like, I'm down.
Thank you. Okay, up next, we're going to pull someone else in from Facebook, trying to balance it out here. Lucas, something very, very timely in your area of expertise. Cindy would like to know, what are your insights into Ukraine and the impact of past U.S. policy, and where are we now?
Yeah, so Ukraine, I mean, again, like I did these arms control negotiations, and what I saw was a power imbalance where Russia has convinced Western Europe to rely solely on them for not solely, but it's like 40% of their gas comes from Russia. And so when all their energy is coming from there, like there's no counterbalance to that anymore. And so Russia's been able to get away with all of their things, again, modernize their military, put themselves in a pretty strong position militarily based off of that money and off of that dynamic. And so I think Russia's the Russian oligarchy who runs that country and, you know, Vladimir Putin and everything else, they're very bad people. Like they are very, I mean, I hate to call somebody bad, but like these are truly bad people, and they don't care about the people who live in their country. They don't care about people who live nearby. They don't care about anything. They just care about their own personal power and their own personal finances. And so I hate to see all of these other countries beholden to them, right? It's very bad. And so again, what I see here, though, is opportunity. I see opportunity for us. You know, whatever happens in Ukraine right now, what I don't want us to do with Ukraine is, you know, get involved in some sort of mess. And then just like with Iraq, we look back 20 years later and we're like, wow, if we had only spent all that money that we spent in Iraq on making our energy grid renewable, we would not even have to worry about the Middle East anymore, right? Or, hey, if we spent all that money that we spent in Ukraine, building out renewable energy and the next generation of energy technology here in America and exported that to Europe, even if we subsidized it so that it was cheaper than the gas, like we wouldn't be in whatever mess we're in 20 years from now, right? And so what I think I see this as an opportunity for us to talk about that, to talk about the right type of investments that we should be making, to talk about investing in America again, especially because right after Iraq and Afghanistan, like I'm telling you, people are open to that right now. They're very, very wary of an overseas engagement. And so if we can just give them something else to latch on to, like, oh, well, if we want to prevent these from happening again, this is what we need to do, then I think that they'll go for that. And so I, I'd hate to say, like, let's try to see the sunny side of the situation, but I do think there's an opportunity to do something good, both for America and for the world here, that has long horizon benefits for everyone. As for what happens in Ukraine, I have absolutely no idea. The guy's a madman. Like, he could invade tomorrow. I mean, it does kind of seem weird to me when people are like, oh, he might invade. Like, the dude's already invaded. He's occupying like a huge chunk of the country in multiple places. Like, this isn't a new invasion. This is a continuation of what's going on. And so, I mean, I don't think we should be trying to put Ukraine into NATO. I think we need to be very careful about things. Like, that's a bad idea. But my goal here would be to use this situation as a reminder that there's a better way for America to do business that supports its local economy, that changes like just the entire dynamic of the world, that keeps us out of this sort of trouble in the future.
Lucas, thank you. Okay, folks, I'm going to pass it back to our co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Taylor, for a few last important thoughts.
Great. Thank you to everyone for these really great questions. And hopefully you saw on this call why we need Lucas in the Senate and what an incredible job he does in talking about the issues and getting to the true heart of the economic and institutional problems that we're confronting today. So please do chip into this race if you have a chance. And Lucas, I have one last question for you. Do you have any final thoughts to leave us with on why progressives should invest in this race right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is a template for how we can not just win again, but actually like fundamentally change who has power in the country. I think that's what we want. I mean, that's what I want. Like, I truly want to change it. I only want to owe the people who took care of us as when I was a kid, and I want to do something for them. And I know that's what we all want to do, right? Like, that was a magical place to live. I mean, even though none of us had any money, or like I said, everybody took care of each other. We knew what to do. And this was a mixed community too. I mean, it was black, white, brown. Like, this was the mixed community in Jefferson City, and we were all there for each other. And so, I mean, I hate the division that I see right now. And this is how I think we rally people together, bring about the change that we're all looking for. And really, like, the corporate power angle is huge, because that is a very clear villain who's harmed all of us that we can rally around and try to change our world to the better for. And so if, I would ask you to invest because I plan on this race being one that is inspirational for people around the country. It's inspirational for all types of candidates. It's a race that people can draw lessons from, that they can copycat, and then they can replicate all around the country, so that we can actually work to make this change, not just with one candidacy, but around the entire country, because it's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of investment. It's going to take a lot of hard work and time. And, I'm happy to be the tip of the spear, as we say in the Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps on that. But it can't just be me at the tip of the spear. I need you all there with me. I need the shaft behind it, so that we can drill it in and show everybody what we can truly do if we run the right type of message. We stay pure, we stay true to our beliefs, and really actually fight for that change.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the question. Lucas, thank you for that. Lucas, I think you've said it. I think you've said it all. What else is there to say? But I will ask you, is there any final words that you have for folks on the line that you'd like them to remember as we start to leave each other?
Well, I do have one request. If you have friends who want to do like a meet and greet Zoom, or even if you're in Missouri, that's really easy. If it's traveling, we have some benchmarks, but we will travel too. So and we're coming around to different towns. So if you have any interest in pulling a group together who would be interested in supporting the campaign, I mean, I love doing events. I love meeting more people. I love talking about this. A lot of people know about Missouri and the dynamics there and sort of the opportunity that we have. But we do have a very compelling case, and I'd love to make that to anyone that you know.
Thank you, Lucas. But most importantly, thank you to everyone that joined us from all over to be here tonight to learn about Lucas. So let's wrap up this call how we started it. And if everyone could please unmute themselves, let's give a big bye for now and win to Lucas and bye to each other.
Bye, Lucas.
Thanks,
Thank
Lucas.
you, Lucas.
You win.
We love you.
Good luck, guys. Love you too.
Hi, Lucas. We're inspired. Thank
We
you.
love Lucas too. We all love Lucas. Okay, it's out there now.
Love Lucas.
Lucas,
We love you. You are awesome.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
Nancy.
everyone. Good night.
Bye, Lucas.
We
need to talk.
I'm making my donation right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye.